right, now it's time to get into what I feel is the hardest of the three Olympic weightlifting movements, and that is the jerk, right? So we have the push jerk and the split jerk are the most common of the jerks, obviously the split jerk being number one. But first let's start with the dip and the drive, right? The push jerk and the split jerk both start with a dip and a drive. I always like to have my athletes master the dip and the drive. So we typically start with a push jerk before I teach them the split jerk, because if you think about it, with the push jerk, you have the up and the down. With the split jerk, you have the up and the down, and then you have the forward and the backwards. So like I've said before, the more you have to do, the more that can go wrong. We try and minimize it so that way you can master the dip and the drive and the catch, and then we can add in the split. So to start with Mike, what I want to do is let's get positioning right. A lot of people struggle with the position. So really what it comes down to is just mastering the movement. So he's going to be set up in a good strong position here. He's going to get his feet to what he believes is a comfortable position for him, but also what is going to allow him to move the way we want him to move. We want to avoid the knees traveling too far forward, right? We want to be able to drive the knees out. So he's going to have to stagger his feet into a position that works for his body type and that works for him to get into the ideal positions. That's going to differ for everybody. Some people can get away with closer together. Some people need to be a little bit further apart. Really, there's no right or wrong way. There's just the best way that works for you. All right, so sometimes it's okay to play around with it, and I highly encourage you to play around with different positions, right? Yes, we know that the closer your feet are, the more power you can produce versus the wider, but at certain times, right, if you can't get into the correct position, that's actually going to hold you back more than trying to produce the most amount of power. So sometimes it's better to go a little bit wider because you'll end up actually lifting more, okay? So he's in position here. What we want to focus on is balance, right? I like to think about, okay, sit the weight back on the heels, then push your toes into the ground, so that way we're getting even distribution, but I like to start with the back and then push down into it to balance it out versus just starting by pushing into the floor, because typically that tends to have athletes lean a little too much into the toes instead of being balanced. From here, he's gonna slowly dip, pause, right? Come back up. Let's go ahead and put your hands in the jerk position. I always like to put my hands here because I just wanna practice more like I'm in the actual jerk position, right? So that way we can think about being relaxed here, right? Bar on the shoulders. From here, he's gonna drive the knees out, dip straight down, boom. All right, we're staying stacked. What we want to avoid is an overarch of the back here. So we go ahead and come up. We wanna make sure you stay in that neutral position here. Knees out, drive straight down, boom. Right, from here, right, you'll see that the knees don't go past the toes. The weight is balanced in the whole foot. Come back up. This is step one. You must master this first, okay? And then what we can do is we can add the bar. Okay, so now we've got the bar, and so we're gonna do the exact same drill, but we're adding a little bit of loading, and then we're also working on this front rack position. You'll see that the bar is fully supported by the shoulders here. He's got as much grip on the bar as possible, right? And his arms are nice and relaxed. There's not extra tension, because if you stay too tense here, you have a tendency to start pushing with the arms before you've finished your drive with the legs, which typically results in a push forward. So his best bet is to stay relaxed, drive with the legs, and then punch through, right, to get the bar going in the best direction possible, which is slightly up and back. So from here, it's gonna do a slow controlled dip, stop, pause, come back up, right? What he wants to think about is taking a big breath into his chest, right? That's gonna give him more area and a stronger position for holding that barbell in place as he dips. For those of you that have barbells that kind of shift forward in your dip, this is a great way to prevent that. So that way you can still stay relaxed here, big chest, tight midline, go ahead and dip and come back up, right? Practice this, slow controlled movements, just master it. Get the positioning with the breathing, the tension in the midline, right? Get all this stuff dialed in before you worry about jerking the bar overhead, because if this isn't right, the position overhead's not gonna be right. The bar path isn't gonna be right. We have to master the basics. Guess what? Quarantine time, you got nowhere to be. Practice, 200 reps, up, down, right? The more you practice, the better you're gonna get. All right, so now that we've worked on our dip and our drive position, now we're gonna do a couple drills in the split. So step one is we're gonna get into our ideal split position. So number one, you wanna make sure that the knee is not forward of the ankle, right? Back knee is bent, foot is straight or maybe slightly rotated out, right? Both toes are kind of pointed in just slightly, so that way we get a little bit of tension in the hip here, and that way that's kind of stopping the knee from sliding forward, right? From here, he's got a nice tight midline. He's holding his position, right? Back knee is at least like 8 inches off the ground is ideal. You don't want to get too low where you're kind of dropping into a lunge. Now that he's got, and then also the width, right? He's going to be more stable by having a little bit more width, by not being too narrow like this, like a tightrope. You want that side-to-side stability. From here, what I'm going to have him do is practice maintaining his balance. 50-50 balance is what we're looking for between the front and the back feet. You don't want to be too far forward. You don't want to lean back too much, right? Typically what you see is too far forward, not back too much. From here, what he's going to do is he's going to do 5 presses from the split position, maintaining his balance, right? Not leaning or adjusting his weight as he presses. He wants to maintain that 50-50 balance, pressing the bar up and back just like he would in a jerk. All right, so the next movement is a jerk from a split. So you see he's set up in the exact same position. Now what he's going to do is he's going to do a small dip, drive, and punch back under. The key to this one is not punching so low that the knee drops lower than he already is. He just wants to kind of get back to that same ideal catch position, right? So that way he's building consistency in the position that he wants to catch it in, right? So go ahead and execute 3 reps. Here we go. Focus on staying balanced in the feet and not having that weight shift around. I will tell you, this one is difficult. It's probably gonna take you a little bit to get dialed in. I know it's definitely taken myself and other athletes a little bit to stay balanced. You're just gonna have to work on it. Just like anything else, let's do a lot of reps. Right, we only want to do about 5 reps at a time because this one can be tiring, but let's do 10 sets. You know, let's do, and if you can't get it by 10 sets, maybe let's do 20.